This time I am joined by William from Oxygen Esports. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, anytime I get to talk about Heroes of the Storm at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I'm pretty happy. So thrilled to be here, my man.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. So let's get right into it. Where did the Oxygen Esports name come from?
Well, that's a really good question. So Oxygen Esports is a pre-existing esports org, right? I think there were some orgs that were formed specifically for the CCL or for entry into the CCL. Oxygen has been around, outside of that for a while. It's actually an outgrowth of a former pro team called Team Genji, which I co-founded, which competed in Hearthstone for a long time. A couple other, it was more of a strategy game team like Magic Arena, etc. We're actually very successful in Hearthstone. We were ranked the #1 team in the world for a while. We had a lot of GM players. We still do actually. Seiko and Nalguidan and Hearthstone Grandmasters or Oxygen. So if somebody listening watches Hearthstone, we like that Activision Blizzard game too. But earlier this year, because of the success we'd had with Genji, we made a big investment in our team side and we really scaled it out. So we rebranded as Oxygen because we had a whole thesis about breathing fresh air into the ecosystem and all of this stuff. But fundamentally, we really wanted to be a player first, friendly, accessible organization. And when we did the rebranding, we kicked off a big expansion for new rosters. So we joined the RLCS, where we compete in the EU. We joined Rainbow Six Siege in North America. We've just announced a couple of other rosters. Like we actually have a very strong Valorant team that was announced like 5 days ago or something. So we've done a lot of growth. But Heroes of the Storm is a game that I, as a co-founder, I'm just passionate about. I absolutely love it. And so when we learned that there was an opportunity for Heroes of the Storm to come back, and maybe get a rebirth in its competitive scene, I personally know how amazing the game is. And I know that I think the fan community is much larger and more passionate than people might realize. So we wanted to be involved, and here we are.
Oh, that's absolutely great. You talked about having all these different teams and, working with all of these other players or new players or just anyone within these expanded communities. What is the goal for Oxygen Esports for the players outside of obviously getting them to their match on time and maybe setting up scrims? What do you want to offer these players beyond just Heroes of the Storm?
Well, that's a really great question. I think it varies by game and it varies by player, right? Because everybody has different aspirations. I think some people, want to be on the world's best in class roster and win everything. I think other people are trying to develop their streaming careers and are looking for a platform to build audience. And, sometimes there are even people who are just, trying to enjoy the esports scene and figure out if it's right for them. And they're looking for an organization that can be a good and friendly home to them without putting too many strenuous demands on them as players while they see if it's fit. And I think for us, Oxygen really, should run across the ecosystem. Our main goal is to be extremely friendly, extremely player first, and extremely accessible. But obviously, esports is about performance, and you don't do very well as an org if you don't win. And so, for us, we hope that we enable our players with the tools to succeed, whether that's the right coaches, whether that's access to esports psychologists, trainers, whatever it is. We hope that we're facilitating the players' growth so that they win more because they're part of Oxygen.
So it's very much kind of giving them the tools that they're going to ask for, not even so much being like, hey, this is all we have. It's what do you want and what can we then bounce from there, or at least, expand from there. So I really like that. That's interesting. Yeah, a lot of the orgs want to amplify the players outside of the game, and that's definitely really cool for Oxygen Esports. Dialing back to the, at least the first exhibition series that we saw this past weekend, are there any roles, characters, plays that stand out to you when searching for a player for your 6-man roster?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I want to be, careful and transparent because although I absolutely love Heroes of the Storm, I am not the person in charge on our team of scouting the players. And, any Heroes of the Storm fan should be grateful of that because I am gold, platinum at best in Heroes.
Me too. It's okay.
I was going to say we should play with each other.
Absolutely. Maybe we can get to Diamond together.
Oh, dude, I've wanted to do that Diamond climb for a while. It's like, it's always there. Every time I Q ranked, I'm like, is this the year? Here we go. But I think in general, a couple things that had stood out to me. One is just how great it is to see high level heroes play again. I mean, truly, honestly, like I know there are lots of incredible streamers and lots of great, and GM has its own wonderful suite of players, but just seeing teams and groups of players competing when there is a real like structure behind it and there really is something on the line and accolades in a way that hasn't really existed before. That to me, or since the HGC, that to me has been really wonderful because I actually had stopped watching high-level heroes play a little bit. They're just, it's just like, without the structure and the winning and losing. And now, like, I mean, partly it's because my org's involved, but partly it's just because as a personal viewer, like, I'm obsessed with it. Like, I can't watch enough of these in-houses and exhibition games and things because it's just so great to see these players showcasing this. So one is just like, it's fun and it's good for Heroes of the Storm. I think specifically, I've been surprised by how diverse the meta is too. Like and maybe this is my own ignorance, but I had expected that just sort of how much absence there's been from high level play in, Heroes of the Storm, that maybe we would see more set rosters or groupings or groups of heroes. And look, there are certainly ridiculously strong heroes like now, like Diva, right? I mean, this is amazing, or Vikings on some maps. But overall, like just the diversity of heroes and the flexibility of strategies that can get offered, whether it's dual support or Zool main tank, or like, it's pretty crazy that the host scene can facilitate this sort of thing right now.
Yeah, it's the CCL meta is insane. Like Crow and I were actually talking a little bit about it, but the big thing that I think everyone's realizing, Chromie and Medivh, they're not. It's not that they're not viable; they're too viable apparently. Like
those portals are insane in the hand. Like whenever I play Medivh, it's a story of I drop a portal, it's going the wrong way, I get in it anyway. You know what I mean? Like. But like, maybe that's the third takeaway is like, again, I don't really feel super qualified to evaluate, but just the way these players can capitalize off of positioning. So even things like, just slows being so like, part like why Chromie's so strong is that Sand is just insane zoning, right?
Yeah.
And these are things that for me as, more of a casual player, like I can't appreciate the power of those abilities until you see how effectively whole teams capitalize on them to just absolutely close out team fights.
The high level play that we've seen for at least the first weekend of the exhibition matches have been absolutely outstanding, and I look forward to the upcoming weeks that we have. There's basically 24 more matches left because there's 6 per day and there's 4 days left, so a lot of great action still coming at you for the CCL exhibition matches. Now, in these same exhibition matches, we're talking about the things that kind of stand out to you, what kind of excites you to look at these players and what to watch. What's the opposite? What turns you away from a potential player? What's something that players should know? Like, if I want to get onto the Oxygen Esports, I need to, stop doing this or avoid doing that. Like, what's something that maybe you might recommend or, someone can just keep an eye out for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's obvious stuff, right? Like toxicity and things, but I don't think we've seen really, to my knowledge, much, if any of that. And I think that speaks to just how awesome the Heroes of the Storm community is, right? But, obviously stuff like that's a problem. I think the biggest thing I've seen though, and partly it's a little bit the nature of the format, so it's difficult how you quite assess this, but it's just not responding to calls or not responding to team communication, right?
Ooh, okay.
Clearly communicating what you're doing, right? And again, I'm not like the biggest expert on this, but definitely in some of the in-houses or games I've seen in the comms I've listened to a little bit, it does seem like there's just occasion, and whether it's the players aren't as familiar with, playing with each other because it's randomized, I'll leave that to sort of the experts we have to evaluate. But I think the big thing we would care about most is communication. Because I think Heroes of the Storm is really, at heart, it's a communication-driven game, right? It's all about showing up on time to the right place, like most MOBAs in that regard.
I often do say that Heroes of the Storm is best played when it's 5 people on one side, 5 on the other, all in comms, in coordinated play. Like casting any sort of coordinated play is just always so much more fun than some sort of Storm League or quick match games, because those are just pure chaos with maybe a little more control chaos in our exhibition matches. But these have been absolutely a blast to cast, and absolutely it is a good point to note that communication is a big factor in Heroes of the Storm. That's actually something that I don't think many of the orgs have noted, but I know a lot of them are very, very interested because, well, I see them in all the voice channels listening in, and I know there's a couple that are watching streams and they're listening to voice comms. So if you don't think the orgs pay attention to that, they definitely do. So
yeah. I mean, quite seriously, because to some extent, particularly given the duration that we have for the CCL this year, right? Many of these players are just mechanically their proficiency is correct, right? And certainly, you can improve mechanical proficiency, but over the period of time that you have, right? You're not going to turn somebody who's a good tank into a AAA first tier class tank, right? There's just, the season's too short this year to have that sort of mechanical progression. So if you take that as a given, right? it really is, I think, the calm stuff that's important, because that can be taught, but you want to see the baseline people are working with, and you want to see how they respond and what their inclination is to do. Because that is, again, I mean, at the end of this game is, if you have 5 people showing up and there's only 4 on the other side of the team fight, you're probably going to win. And that's the heart of HOTS.
Yeah, that's very well said. Well, before I let you run out of here, are there any closing tips or even just perspective or just thoughts that you'd like to share with us on the season for CCL?
Yeah, I mean, 3 things, I think, actually. One is just like how well I think CCL has been set up and run so far. Just as an org owner being part of the process, like, it's been incredible. The communication, I think the thoughtfulness, the dedication, there's clear passion on the part of CCL staff for the game and making this the best possible event for both the players and the orgs. Like, I just think that has been phenomenal. That's one piece. Two, I would say just, how grateful and excited Oxygen is to be part of, the CCL scene. Like, we're really big believers in Heroes of the Storm organizationally. We believe the game itself, has a real opportunity to kind of phoenix here. And this could be the start of it. And so, we're excited for where this goes, both this season and hopefully in future. And then thirdly, I would say, always take Haymaker on Murd, and it's the only right pick.
I will say this: someone did take Haymaker over the weekend, and I remember shouting. I remember shouting out Oxygen. I was like, they want to get on the team.
I know you did. I know, because I was watching that game, and I was like, you were like, somebody said, and I was like, it's me. only the Haymaker. It's just the most fun. No, and I mean, as we saw in that game, it's crazy good when it fits, right? So yeah.
Well, William, thank you so much for joining me. That is going to wrap up our interview here with Oxygen Esports. You have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing your draft picks on October 17th.
I can't wait. You too, Bahamut. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.